Today I'm going to show you how to shoot with gels to help with color grading in Lightroom. Okay, so I recently had a workshop in Denver, dynamic lighting for Summit Workshops, and it happened to be at the beginning of May. So being a Star Wars nerd, May the 4th was coming up. I didn't have anything to post because I hadn't shot any Star Wars content in a while, but I typically try to post something for May the 4th every year. So we last minute decided to do a Jedi photo shoot. Westcott just came out with new ice lights, and JC, who was also the instructor with me, the other instructor with me at the workshop, had a couple of them with him. One of them happened to be bicolor, one of them was bicolor, one of them was RGB. So because I would have done a red one because I like the dark side of the Force. I'm such a dork. But we only had one RGB, the other one was bicolor, so we had to use white, which was fine. So I was trying to think quickly. It was the end of the day. We had shoots with models all day long. Everybody was tired. So we wanted to get it done in time. It was the 3rd, so I wanted to post it the next day. So I knew I was going to be up late anyway. We're trying to figure out quickly what to do. So nighttime stuff always looks good with Star Wars because you can use space and, black backgrounds, that kind of thing. And I knew that I had a couple of pictures of supermoons that I've used in the past, so I could use that and incorporate it. So I thought, well, we can use a Manny Ortiz beauty dish that would go perfect in the background, like right in the middle of the action to mimic a moon, and then I could just in Photoshop lay the moon actually over that. So that would give the light, that would simulate the light coming from the moon behind the subjects. And then I added a second light, which I'm going to show you the behind the scenes here in a minute. So I thought it would be cool to have a Jedi stabbing a Sith, like through the heart, with a lightsaber. I came up with that idea because the two ice lights could go on each side of the person that had the lightsaber going through them. So then we could, fake it basically. So we had the Jedi, who was Chris Steppick, the workshop director, stabbing JC with one in the front, and then we had Aileen, one of our assistants, in the back holding the second lightsaber, or the second ice light. And it was kind of a challenge to get them even in the back, but I had to Photoshop it a little bit afterwards. So I wanted to go heavy on the color grading because this is a cinematic type picture. And typically when I do this kind of stuff, if it's based off after a movie, sometimes I try to mimic what the movie actually looked like, and then sometimes I'll go for the overall feel, but I might change the color grading, or like in this case, the Sith, when they have Force lightning in the movies, it's more white or bluish. So I went with like a warmer tone, and because that would match the moon. So I was thinking about this. This was all going through my head before we started the shoot. And so then I thought, well, if we're going to do that, then I could gel the Manny Ortiz beauty dish, which had an FJ400. I could gel that, and then we could match that with either a complementary color or something that's along the same lines as far as like where the color is on the color wheel. So I went with green. Green and yellow go well together. Or actually green and, so we used this amber gel. I could have gone with yellow, but I decided I really like this color. I think it's awesome. I use it all the time. So these are Roscoe Color Effects gels, and we will link these down below so you guys can check these out. And then, so we put this on the Manny Ortiz beauty dish, and then we used the Westcott Flexi Gel, which is this is one of the new Vivid gels that they came out with not too long ago. That has a little bit more saturation. So we put this on the key light. So the key light, basically the way that I wanted this to be dark and pretty dramatic. So I knew that moon behind them, or the light behind them that was simulating the moon, was gonna be very bright, making the edge light. And then in the front, I knew we were in a darker room. It was gonna be at night, so it was gonna be, the shadows would be really dark. So I really just wanted to fill that in with this green color. So we put this on a second FJ400, and then I used a 1x3 strip box that we already had out from the workshop. I thought that would work perfectly because I didn't want it to be a big, huge light source that was going to be very bright. I just wanted it to be subtle with a little bit of color, and then I knew I was going to go into post and enhance these colors later. But that, you can start without any gels at all and then do all the color grading later. But to me, I already knew what direction I wanted to go, so this was easier. It gives you a head start whenever you shoot like that. So I recommend complementary colors or colors that are beside each other on the color wheel, and you can experiment with different ones, but that's the way that I approach it typically whenever I do use gels. So let's hop over to Lightroom. Okay, so you see here, we've got, let's just go in order. All right. So here's what we got in Lightroom. That's out of camera. There's nothing done to it at all. Completely raw. There's the edited or toned photo in Lightroom. Then after I brought it into Photoshop, I added some texture, added the force lightning, and we're gonna, just a little teaser, we're gonna make a Patreon video to show you how to make that lightning too. It's actually not as hard as you would think. And I'm gonna give you some free lightning brushes for all the people that subscribe to me on Patreon. And then there's the final that we imported back into Lightroom with just a few more finishing touches put onto it. So before Chris and JC, they were in a different group shooting that day. So before they got back to the hotel, the students that were with me and my assistants, we went ahead and started to set up the shoot so that when they got back, we could just go ahead and do it. So here's the first shot that I took. This is just the Manny Ortiz with the FJ400 behind the two subjects. So we've got Carlos and John here standing in for Chris and JC for the models. So these were two students at the workshop. So I always say light back to front. So we started with the backlight first, all right, or the edge lights, all right. So, and this was doing exactly what I wanted, just kind of like kissing the edges here, just like getting the edge light right in the middle where the moon's going to be. And then then the second shot, I took that 1x3 and had it just to my left, and I had it pretty directional. It was up probably about, I would say maybe 6 or 7 feet up in the air and angled down. It was pretty, I don't know exactly the angle, but it was pretty sharp. It was more than 45 degrees for sure, because I wanted to come more top down so it was still directional and not flat. So you can see that it's not turned up very high. There's no gels on either of these photos right now. These are just the lights by themselves. So there's just the backlight, and then there's the strip box added in, and you can see that it just adds just a little bit of detail, everything. Like in Carlos, for example, here on the left, you can see there's no detail in his hair, on the side of his face, and then now we've got it in there. So, and we'll also put a lighting diagram on Patreon for my subscribers and Instagram also for this. Okay, so let's look at the behind the scenes videos. Nope, that's my lightning. All right, so here's the first one. So you can see the setup. We had one bigger background that was not an X-Drop Pro, but we had it on an X-Drop Pro because it came out on the ground because we didn't want any light bouncing up. We were doing a shutter drag that day. So we have that, then we have an X-Drop Pro with black on the left, and then another X-Drop Pro on the right with a texture on it. So, but it didn't really matter because I knew that wasn't gonna be part of the shot anyway. And if it was in the background a little bit, I kind of thought that this might kind of simulate like, I don't know, like a sky, because there might be some clouds up there, something like that. So you can see Aileen with the back lightsaber that's gonna be coming out the back of JC. Then we threw another background that we had over him so he would look like a Sith, and then Chris had his hoodie with him, and he put some boxing gloves on too, which I had to Photoshop out the Everlast logo. That was pretty funny. But this was pretty fun. Obviously, as you can tell, we're enjoying this quite a bit. Okay, so you can see where all the lights are. This strip box is kind of even with this light stand here, and then that Manny Ortiz is right behind them. So I'll just play this real quick. So I'm kind of directing them. So we're trying to figure out how this is going to work here. So I'm explaining to JC that he's really got to get his acting shoes on here, because he's got to yell and make this look real. He's got to sell it. All right, let's go to the next one. I put that in there because that was a great take. That may have been the best take of all of them, and I didn't have my focus ready. They kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but everybody is kind of giving me crap there. It's pretty funny. Let's play it again. Okay. All right, here's another one. Oh. So we after this, actually, we made the decision for JC to take off his hood because we thought it might look better because he was a little bit too hidden there. Hey, Chris is enjoying this way too much. All right, and then now we've also added in the Smoke Ninja, which I'll put a link to the Smoke Ninja Pro down in the description too. That thing is awesome, but I happen to have one with me. So we thought that would actually, so we put the dry ice in his hands to make it, because I knew I was going to put force lightning coming out of his hands, so I thought that would match. And then the shot that I ended up using didn't have it in it had already evaporated out of his hands. It was still in the background a little bit, so it still worked really well, but it didn't exactly how I envisioned it, but it still turned out being cool. There we go. I had to get Chris to yell there at the end, which that was a really good job by both of them. Okay. All right, so now you see what the behind the scenes look like, and then you've seen the final photos. So now let's jump over to one of them real quick and do some color grading. Okay, so here's the raw, add a camera. So I'm gonna hit D for develop. And first of all, I'm going to raise the exposure just a little bit to make it a little bit brighter. I'm not worried about this stuff back here. You can see the lightsaber's not totally straight. I'm gonna have to fix that in Photoshop. No big deal, because I'm gonna be bringing it in anyway. I'm gonna leave contrast alone. I'm gonna do that in curves. We're probably gonna open up the shadows a little bit. This is just how I typically edit just every picture. That's how I start. Make it a little bit flat and then increase the contrast from there. All right, so now with the whites and the blacks, I'm gonna hold Option. I'm on a Mac. I'm gonna click that, and so that you can see where your white point is. And go to the right, you can see it's the white portion is getting brighter. And then black's the same thing. Hold Option, and then you can see where the blacks are. We don't wanna lose too much detail here. So the yellow's starting to get black, and the red is actually black. Okay, all right. And then we're gonna bump the clarity up to 15 or so, maybe add a little bit of texture. And then I'm gonna back off on the dehaze just to take out a little bit of contrast, because we're gonna add it back here in a second. All right, so let's go down to our tone curve. The second the white circle here, or the gray circle with the white circle in the middle, is the one we're gonna start at. We're gonna go down to point curve, and I'm gonna go to strong contrast and start there and see what it looks like, which that looks really good. But you can see that we're already losing the blacks pretty quick because this was a dark shot. And you can see here also too, I didn't talk about, you can see what the gels are doing. It's making that, you know, which that's gonna mimic the moon obviously, so I want it to be warm, and then that green just kind of filling the shadows, which is working exactly how I want it to. Because I usually think about the brighter color being in the highlights and the darker color being in the shadows whenever I color grade. So that's the whole point of this, is that we're giving ourselves a little bit of a head start by putting the gels on it. So it's making a very stylized image. You know, you wouldn't do this with everything, but with certain ones, you know, it can look really cool. So, okay, so there we've got the strong contrast. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna try medium just to make sure. I think we're gonna go strong for now. You can refine the saturation here, so you can go to the left and make it less saturated, go to the right. I think that it's fine with the saturation. Sometimes you can do that with skin to make it look less orange, less saturated, but that looks okay. All right, so let's go down to the color mixer now. We're gonna go to the HSL slider. That's what we're gonna adjust. We're gonna go to, let's go to green. Actually, let's go to hue first. So let's go to the greens. I like to always slide, not always, but most times slide the greens to the blue side more, rather than the yellow side. I don't like that as much. Yellows, we're gonna make those, I don't know if I like that. When you go to the right, it's gonna make it more green. So I think, let's just leave it alone for now. Blue and aqua, not really a factor that much. Yeah, that's not really doing anything. And then reds aren't either. Oranges definitely will. So we don't want it to be that orange. That doesn't look bad, but I think I like it right in the middle where we've got it. Okay. And then saturation, we're gonna leave that alone, and luminance for now. We may not mess with it at all. Okay, so let's go down to color grading now. So now this is the part where we're gonna do most of our damage here for the color. So we're gonna click on shadows first. So if you go to this first little thing with the 3 circles, that gives you all 3, which we can look at them all at once. So we've got midtones up top, shadows on the left, highlights on the right. All right, so let's go to shadows first. And I don't want green because I feel like that's too saturated right there, too saturated with green. We're gonna go more to like in between blue and green, kind of like that teal sort of color. Maybe like right there. And we don't want to do too heavy-handed, maybe like halfway. And then I think I'm gonna go ahead and put orange and closer to the red side in the highlights and the midtones. More orange, more yellow. Let's go a little bit on the orange side right there. And then we probably don't need to darken down the shadows with that luminance there because they're already pretty dark. I think these are all probably, maybe up the highlights on the luminance just a little bit. And let's go down to blending. It's at 50 right now. So that you can see his face got more orange right away. and there it goes, gets more green. So I think maybe to the left a little bit, and then balance. You want to balance the darks with the lights more, or slide, or do you want to enhance the darks or lights more, I guess, or make them more prominent? So all the way to the left, it's going to be green because the teal color is in our shadows, and then the orange or amber is in our highlights. So I don't know, I kind of like that a little bit better because the green is pretty heavy-handed right now. So there's before, and then there's after, maybe a little bit less. But you can see this is already looking really good together, I feel like, anyway. Now this all comes down to personal taste. And you may hate the way this looks, I don't know. But I think it looks pretty cool. I think it fits very well together. You've got to make sure your colors match, though. That's the key. Okay, sharpening we're going to leave alone. Lens correction, let's check all this stuff. Transform we're not going to do. Effects we're not going to do. And then I come down and mess with calibration sometimes just because you never know like what it might do. So the shadow tint, we're going to go to the magenta side maybe a little bit. And then the reds, we're going more towards like, it definitely makes the oranges look more red there. And then more orange to the right. Maybe slide those a little bit to the right. We'll leave it. We'll leave it how it is. Kind of does the same thing down here on green. And again, I'm just kind of experimenting here just to see if it looks good or not. And it kind of depends on what kind of mood I'm in whenever I come down here and do this. So then you can also hit the eyeball and go before and after. That didn't make a whole lot of difference there, really. So let's go back up now. Let's go back up to the tone curve. So now we've got our color mixer done, our color grading done, and our calibration done. So now if I hit backslash, it's going to show me before. That's where we started, which it did not even seem that bright to begin with. And then now that's where we've come to, right? So let's actually go back in our history to when I raised the exposure right there. So if you mouse over it, it'll show you there's before and there's after. So we started out with a good head start with the gels, but you can see we weren't anywhere close to where we wanted to end up being. So then, we just enhanced it. But that gave us a huge head start over just going with natural color, right? Okay, so let's go up to the tone curve real quick and see if any of this makes sense. So when you look at green, for example, the green channel, the green is on the top. It's kind of like it shows a gradient there between the green and the magenta on the bottom. So this is the shadows on the left and the highlights on the right. So if you grab down here and pull up, that's going to put greens in the shadows. If you pull down, it's going to put magenta in the shadows, right? Same thing up here, green in the highlights, magenta in the highlights, right? So let's maybe put a little bit of green in there and then pull that part down. So the mid-tones are going to be in the middle on your curve here. And then obviously, like I said, the highlights on the right. All right, so, okay, all right. And then let's go to red and see what we want to do here. So I'm going to put a little bit of red, just a little bit of red in the shadows, even though we've got green there already, because those are complementary colors, so they're opposite each other. So I'm just going to see what this looks like. Sometimes I'll play with stuff that doesn't really make sense and do the opposite of because basically what we're doing is the opposite of what we've already started doing. So before we had green in the shadows, now I'm putting some red in the shadows just to see what it looks like, because it might add to it. You never know. Let's go up here in our history, and I do this all the time, go back and forth just to see. So you can see where we did the red and the green channel. So let's go here. So that was before we messed with it, and that's after. And I think so what that did was just even it out. That just shows you, that was unnecessary because, you're basically undoing what you've already done to an extent anyway. So let's go back. Sometimes, like I said, I mess with stuff like that just to see if it's going to look good, but it doesn't always work. So, but it helps you kind of understand what's going on whenever you, play with it a little bit and then go back in your history and say, oh, well, that doesn't look as good as I thought it was going to. And then the only thing, so we used an amber gel. I said I thought about yellow. Let's try that within the blue channel and just see if that makes it way, way warmer. Well, I guess it didn't do as much as I thought it was going to do. You can see what it's doing to the highlights there in the middle of that, where that moon's going to go, which The moon is going to need to be brighter in the center, so I don't know that I really need to put that much color in the center of it there. But you can see when I pull that down, it pulls the whole curve down, and then when I pull it back up, it kind of evens it out. So really, that's not doing a whole lot there. So I think we could probably just leave it. So all right, so I think we're good with how it is. That's starting to look really nice. Now I'm going to crop this. I'm going to press R. And I'm going to come in so you get that light stand out of there, and then just crop this right above their heads. And maybe in a little bit more, just because we don't want their pants in it that much. You've got to think about what's interesting in the photo and what you're looking at. So you're gonna want his hand in there because that's going to be where lightning's coming out of, right? And then, so really there's no need for anything below that. And this left side, the moon's going to be a little bit off center here, but their faces are pretty even on each third of the frame. So and you can see the lightsaber on the right. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. So I think that's a good spot to stop and then go into Photoshop and then start to do a little bit more. We can do more color grading in Photoshop if we want to. I didn't do a whole lot with this one. I may not have done any actually. And then the main thing I did was add the texture over the top and then add the lightning into his hand. So that's what we're going to do next for all of my $15 Patreon subscribers. So those of you on YouTube, I appreciate you watching. I hope that kind of shows you what you can do with gels, what you can do with color grading in Lightroom, and how they can together be a really powerful asset to you to make very stylized photos and have unique photo shoots. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. Make sure you go to matthernandezcreative.com. Sign up for the newsletter. There's going to be more workshops this summer, so make sure you check those out. We're also getting ready to release some presets for Lightroom, and there's going to be some new templates coming out really soon too for baseball and softball, so stay tuned for those. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.